Today on the Final Cut, well, today's our first episode, so welcome. How was that?
It sucked. Badly.
Fair enough. Hello and welcome to The Final Cut, the DIY show that shows you how to apply Hollywood techniques to your low to no budget film using exclusively Final Cut Pro, Motion, and GarageBand. Basically programs you get on your MacBook. I'm your host, Twisty Ceives, and today is our first episode. So, this guy. I started filmmaking when I was 16 years old. I'm 18 years old now, so I've been doing this for roughly 2.5 years, probably, I don't know, 2 years, 2.5 years. So it's safe to say that I have a large amount of experience when it comes to filmmaking, especially DIY and no budget filmmaking. I have no idea what my next line is. When I first started off, I was using WeVideo, which is an online video editing system, but then eventually I was able to upgrade to Final Cut Pro. Also, when I started off, I was using a Canon DSC-H300 camera to film. I'll put a link in the description below. Basically, it's just a point and shoot camera. And at one point, I had to use an iPhone 6 for the majority of my filming. So it's safe to say that I know exactly that I know the struggle of life and the circle that also is associated with that. So it's safe to say that I know the struggle when it concerns using the absolute bare necessities and the worst of the worst equipment. I've worked with old 2005 cell phone cameras, and I've also worked with, iPhone 6 and, and a bunch of other crap. It's all crap, okay? It's crap. I feel like that was wrong. I apologize. I've created and helped to create over 70 videos, which is probably higher now. And with each one of these videos, I was using the absolute bare necessities. I'm talking absolute bare necessities. Basically, we would take a camera, go out, shoot. That was basically the end. That was our end game. That was our plan, and we just did. And because of this, I had to learn the hard way many of the lessons that you can find on YouTube and you can watch tutorials for. I had to learn many of those lessons the hard way. And as I developed in that experience, I came to learn things and techniques, processes on my own that I didn't learn by going to film school otherwise. So basically, this show is me sharing with you the experience that I've come to learn in the past 2.5 years of filmmaking. And as the show continues and progresses, we can learn together. Yeah, together we can learn, we can share our information. My nose is itchy. Sorry, you weren't meant to see that. So today on the Final Cut, our first episode ever, we're going to be talking about 3 tips to improve your filmmaking, more specifically, giving your projects a more unique feel. So, to the Batmobile. Tip number 1 is fonts. Now this is something that people don't talk about nearly enough, and which is kind of sad because it's a very important part of your project. Choosing your fonts for your titles, your credits, and for your release posters is all a very important part of creating a unique and sometimes stylized project, a new thing that you can give to people. Because whenever you create a project, you're trying to create a new experience for people. You want them to walk into it and then walk out completely just awestruck. I think it's awestruck, completely awestruck or starstruck. You want them to walk away from your project completely awestruck, feeling like they just experienced something entirely new, like they were just a part of a whole other world. It's like Avatar when it came out. When you watched Avatar, you felt like you were a part of an entire new world, with the way the entire thing came together. And that's something that a lot of amateur filmmakers forget. And a lot of that has to do with the fonts that you pick. For instance, I've watched many short films where I saw a title come up and I instantly recognized that title from Final Cut Pro X's collections of titles. Why? Because they didn't actually go through in the title settings and adjust everything to more specifically fit their project. Another thing is that they don't import new fonts for their project. For instance, for my short film Rip, I imported a font called Atom from thefont.com into my MacBook so I could use it in Final Cut Pro. I chose this font because it had the unique stylistic feel that seemed to really fit my project and tie it all together. Another great example would be my YouTube series Strangers Inside. For Strangers Inside, I used a font called Cinzel and Cinzel Decorative. They're kind of like a pact. Like that. They got married. And
in holy matrimony.
In holy matrimony. If you didn't hear that. Why? Because I had certain elegance that really fit the tone I was going for the film. Tip number 2, soundtrack. Now, this is talked about a lot, and honestly, it's just as important as it sounds. Soundtrack is often the ultimate determining factor in how your viewers react, connect, and come to understand the emotional context of the scene. For instance, take this scene. When you walk away from the scene, you have the general feeling that the character is sad, yet the actor expresses little to no emotion. The soundtrack completely determined how you came to understand the emotional context of that scene. But let's say we want to switch out the soundtrack for something like this. Watching it with that soundtrack, you have a completely different feeling about what just happened. In the first scene, it felt more sad and, just depressing. But at the end of the second scene, there's more of an inspirational note because the soundtrack built up to something bigger, even though you never saw what that thing was. This is a great example of how soundtrack completely alters the feel of your film. So keep this in mind when you're editing and filming your project. Tip number 3, pacing. Pacing is probably almost as important as soundtrack. Poor pacing results in a poor project, which results in people not liking what you make, which sucks. Pacing is the overall speed and timing of your project. For instance, take a look at this scene. Not bad, right? But if we go through and tighten up some of the shots, we have something that looks a little more like this. As you can see, just by tightening up some of the shots, we walk away with a much more well-paced action sequence. This is a very important thing to keep in mind when you're not only editing, but when you're filming. For instance, take a look at these two shots. You can clearly see the character hitting the ground twice. But if we go into Final Cut Pro and tighten up those shots, we have something that's much more well-paced and is not all glitchy, you know what I'm saying? You don't have the character doing something clearly doing it twice. You want to make your takes as seamless as possible. For instance, in the first scene that we showed you, the character looks to the side. Well, if you'll notice that the character begins looking to the side, then it cuts to a different angle, and it shows the character complete that motion. By cutting the two shots seamlessly together, we have something that looks much more fluent, and therefore the pacing of the entire scene is much, much better off. And now for a bonus tip. Because I'm nice. This is something, this is one of the biggest problems. I mean, this is a huge problem But this is one of the biggest problems I see with amateur filmmakers. For instance, I was watching a short film on YouTube the other day by someone. Now the short film itself wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty good. It had a unique storyline. It had several other things going for it. But one of the biggest problems I had with it was that I recognized every single effect that was used in the project. Clearly they had used Final Cut Pro X because I've used those same exact effects in some of my projects. A good way to avoid this and create a more unique and stylistic feel for your project is to, when you apply effect, always adjust it. Don't just slap something on there and be done. Go through and adjust it. For instance, when you apply something like the black and white effect, actually adjust the coloring of the effect, and if need be, apply a basic color correction tool to further perfect the tone that you're going for. This is not only going to help you move away from being an amateur filmmaker, but it's also going to help you create something that's more unique and fits what you're going for. And it's the little details like this that matter. Every single part of your project needs to be thought out and be creative and adjust everything you can. That's the same thing I was talking about with the font. When you apply a font, don't just use the preset font. Actually find something that fits your project uniquely. Don't just slap something on, be creative. And I believe that is our episode, the conclusion of our first episode of the Final Cut. If you liked this episode, there's a thumbs up somewhere down there. You can like that if you want. I don't know. Should they like it? Should they like it?
If they want to.
She says if they want to. So if you want to, you can like it. Also, if there's an effect that you'd like to see me do on the show, feel free to shoot me an email or send me a message. Feel free to send me a message on my Facebook or my Twitter. Links are in the description below. And I think that about wraps this episode up. Good, because I need to pee.
Again. What the heck?
Is this recording?
I hope so.
I hope it's recording too. Where was that? I don't know. Where was that? Don't know. Or I don't know. I chose this font because I chose this font because it had the very specific style. La